When most people think of animals that have incredibly long lifespans, they usually think of creatures like David, the oldest known Galapagos tortoise, who lived to be 122 years old, or Jonathan, a Seychelles giant tortoise, currently living on St. Helena Island in the Indian Ocean, and estimated to be somewhere between 180 and 300 years old. These are both very impressive lifespans, but they're nothing compared to some of the animals we'll talk about in this video. Because these animals not only live for hundreds of years, but some live for thousands. And if it weren't for one scientific discovery, we might not even know they existed at all. Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. First, we have to talk about stromatolites, because even though they aren't technically animals, they're one of the earliest known forms of life on Earth. Stromatolites are formed by layers of sediment that are trapped by photosynthetic microbes, most likely cyanobacteria. And the oldest ones we've found so far are around 3-4 billion years old. But there has been evidence that suggests they may have formed just 700 million years after the Big Bang. That would mean that the first stromatolites were created around 3-6 billion years ago. Now, it is important to note that we don't actually know if these ancient stromatolites were still alive when we found them. Because if they are alive, that would make them the oldest living organisms on the planet. But since no one has been able to successfully culture a stromatolite in a lab, we really can't say for sure. Next, we have the glass sponge. Glass sponges are named for their skeleton, which is made up of a type of silica, the same material that's used to make glass. The great thing about their skeletons is that they preserve very well in the fossil record, which means that we've been able to learn a lot about them. For example, we know that the oldest known glass sponge is 15 million years old. But some modern-day glass sponges are still alive today. In fact, there was a glass sponge discovered in 2019 off the coast of Australia that scientists estimate to be over 10,000 years old. That makes glass sponges potentially the longest living animals on the planet. Well, almost. Because what could possibly live longer than a sponge? You'd probably be surprised to hear that it is actually quite common for certain types of sponges to live for thousands of years. There is even one species of sponge that scientists have been able to date back to at least 600 years ago. And because the oldest living things are often found in environments like the deep sea, where conditions have unchanged much in hundreds of millions of years, it's possible that there could be sponges living today that are even older than this one. But let's move on to our next animal, the coelacanth. Coelacanths are a type of fish that most likely evolved around 340 million years ago. But for a very long time, the only evidence we had that they existed came from fossils. This led many scientists to believe that they went extinct around 252 million years ago. However, in 1938, one was caught off the coast of South Africa. Since then, we've discovered that there are actually two species of coelacanths still living today. But they're very rare, and most of the time when they're caught, they're accidentally caught in fishing nets. So if you want to see one for yourself, your chances are slim. The deepest any coelacanth has ever been found is 332 feet, which is just above the continental shelf. They're also only found in very specific places like Indonesia, Mauritius, the Philippines, Papua New Guinea, and Sri Lanka. But the weirdest thing about coelacanths is that even though they were thought to have gone extinct over 250 million years ago, they're still basically unchanged from their ancestors. They're a type of what's called a living fossil. This means that aside from slight variations, they look pretty much the same as they did millions of years ago. It's like finding an actual dinosaur. Now, do you know of any other animals that have ridiculously long lifespans? Let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.